Hello friends. So once again I am here with you. So this time we will solve some examples based upon Hooke's law, and we will consider some axially loaded members and apply that Hooke's law to find the say change in the length of the members. So let's proceed with the lecture. So axial stresses, I think we had discussed it earlier also, but to cut short I will tell you. So when the load is applied along the axis of the body, so that time the stresses developed in the body are called axial stresses. So as we have discussed in the previous lectures that uh, there are internal resistances developing in the material when the material is subjected to some sort of a external load. So those internal resistances may be in terms of movement or forces, and we can say or the internal resistance is nothing but the stress also. So whenever a body is subjected to some sort of a load, so body will resist in the form of stresses. So let's take an example. We will take a prismatic bar with an axial load acting on it. A very basic example. So this is a prismatic bar. So let's suppose we have applied two loads. So this load P is the load applied along the axis of the body. So this is the axis of the body. So along the axis we have applied a load P. So what will happen once this body is subjected to load P? So let's assume this body is ductile. The bar is made up of a ductile material. So certainly, as per the given load, the bar will elongate in the direction of the load. So that is how it has been represented in the figure. So this is what we get, change in the length. That is the elongation. Now it depends if you apply a load in the opposite direction, such that it will be compressing the material. So then we will get a change in length, but it will be decrease in the length. So in the case of tensile loading, we get increase in the length, and when the compressive load is applied, we get decrease in the length. So how to determine this change in the length? Now in this case, as we already know, this change in the length or change in the dimension is very much influenced by one, the applied load, then certainly the length of the material, the cross sectional area of the material, and also the material property. So that is the Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity. So that is basically Hooke's law. So what we will do, we will derive a formula using simple Hooke's law. So Hooke's law we know stress is proportional to strain, and if you replace that proportionality sign, we introduce a constant of proportionality which is called modulus of elasticity or Young's modulus. So that is the material property. So this modulus of elasticity or Young's modulus is the ratio of stress to strain. And as we are discussing the axial loading, so in the case of axial loading, the formula or mathematical formula for the stress is load per unit area. And for the strain, it is change in the dimension divided by the initial dimension, initial or original dimension. So this is the formula. So using Hooke's law, we can derive formula for this change in length. It's quite simple. So just substituting the values of stress and strain in the Hooke's law, we get this ratio, and finally this is the formula. So change in the length, which has been shown as dl here, is equal to product of applied load and the length of the specimen or bar divided by the product of cross-sectional area and modulus of elasticity. So this is the very basic formula. So in this formula, we have del L1, P2, L3, A4, and E5. We have 5 players in this formula. Now it depends upon the given situation, given problem, what is to be determined. So this is a single equation with us. Using this equation, we can find any unknown, and that unknown depends upon the given problem. One thing is very important. So the product of this product EA, the product of modulus of elasticity and the cross-sectional area, is normally known as axial rigidity. So at times it has been asked that find the axial rigidity. We have some more types of rigidity, which we will be discussing in the coming days. So as of now, if the load is axial, so we have axial rigidity, which is nothing but the product of the modulus of elasticity and the cross-section area. And yes, K, uh, very important term K, stiffness, that is force per unit deflection. So we can modify this formula and derive the value of force per unit deflection. Now deflection we have, and so del L is the deflection. And if you, using this relation, if you bring it here, so we can derive the formula of our stiffness. P upon del L will be the stiffness. You can modify this relation, and here goes the formula for stiffness is equal to the product of AE divided by the length of the specimen. A very basic formula as per Hooke's law for axially loaded members. And again, I will just repeat that whatever we are doing here is within that proportional limit. So that's very important. We are not entering the plastic zone. So we are within that elastic range. That's why we are able to use this Hooke's law or Young's modulus. So let's solve some examples using this derived. So let's take an example now. So longitudinal member is suspended from a support as shown in the figure, and this member is subjected to a tensile load. So this load is acting along the axis of the beam. As we can see, this is the axis of the beam, and this load is acting along the axis. So certainly, because of this load, there will be extension in the length of the beam. So this will be the extension in the length of the beam. So this is the question. Now see what else is given to us. Let's see the data. So this is a steel member. So that is it. The material is ductile, and the length is given to us 2 meters, and the diameter is 0.5 meter. Diameter means the cross section of this beam. The cross section is 0.5 meter diameter, and this load P is of 500 kilonewtons. Now what we have to find is we have to find the we have to ensure the safety of the member under the applied load. So you have to ensure that when this member is subjected to this load P, the member is safe. And then we'll check with that whether it is safe or not. And then we have to find the elongation and finally the maximum possible elongation. So let's proceed. So this is the given data. Now, so since the material is steel, so for steel we have yield strength equals to 350 megapascal, and the Young's modulus is 200 gigapascals. Since we need this data for our calculations, so we can have this data from the uh, previous catalogs of the materials, which you can get easily from anywhere. So in order to find whether the given member is safe or not, so that is the first part that pertains to the first part. So we must find the working stress. So that is the stress corresponding to the given loading, and then we can compare the stress with the yield strength. Since we know that for ductile materials we consider yield strength to be our design strength. So we will find our actual load in the material, actual stress in the material. We will compare it to the yield strength. If it is less, our material is safe, our member is safe, and if it is more, so our member is not safe. We have to revisit the design of the member. So that's what I just told you. Further, now stress, axial stress, that's load per unit area of the circular cross section, we know pi r square, and the stress comes out to be 25.51 megapascal. Now this stress is to be compared with the yield strength. Now you can see it's quite safe because our working stress is 25.51 megapascal and the yield strength is 350 megapascal. It's quite safe. So that safety can be ensured if you find factor of safety also. Factor of safety, as we know, yield strength upon working strength, and the factor of safety, if it is more than one, your member is safe. Now in this case, just for the sake of information, I'm telling you, we have 13.72. No doubt, it's very safe. But it depends on the application where you have to consider higher factor of safety or not. That's from design point of view I'm talking. So in this case, if I can work out, I can use this member as a component in some part with a factor of safety more than one. It may be two, three, four, five also. So we should go by that. So that will save our cost because more factor of safety means it's on the higher side. More cost will be involved because the dimension of the material will be as per the design only. So selection of factor of safety depends upon the application. So moving ahead, part B. So we have to find the elongation, simple Hooke's law. The change in length equals to PL upon AE. So here we have 2.55 into 10 to the power minus 4 meters. That is our change in length. Now the last part was what is the maximum possible elongation for the given member. So since we are using Hooke's law and Hooke's law relates stress and strain. So when we talk about this maximum possible elongation, so for that we must take the maximum possible stress in our member, which is nothing but the yield strength. So it means corresponding to your yield strength, you have to find the change in length of the material. So which comes out to be 3.5 into 10 to the power minus 3. So what I have done here, this P by A has been replaced by this sigma, this P by A ratio. It's nothing but the stress. This has been replaced by the sigma, and sigma is nothing but yield strength, which is already known to us. So what we can see here that the maximum possible elongation would be 3.5 into 10 to the power minus 3 meters. So let's move ahead. So let's take one more example. Now in this example you can see an assembly has been provided with different cross sections, rather different length and different loading. See, we are well aware that the change in length formula or the Hooke's law comprises of P, it comprises of L, and then comes your area and modulus of elasticity. So since modulus of elasticity is constant, so we will not bother about that. But we have load, length and area. So these things are to be considered because what we want is finally we want a free body diagram with the net load acting on that body, and that member or body should be of uniform cross section. So that is what is to be found out, and then you can apply that formula. So in nutshell, we have to find we must have free body diagrams. So in this case, let's what is given to us in the question. He says steel bar. It has been supported at the bottom at an S, and the cross-sectional areas of PQ and QS has been given. It is 400 and 1000 millimeter square. In fact, the cross-sectional area of member PQ, QR, and RS it has been mentioned here, and lengths have been also provided to us. Now we have to find the elongation of this beam. Now, if this would have been a single beam, if it had been a single beam like this, if this is a single beam like this is a single beam with a rectangular uniform cross section, and these are the load acting at this point. What we did in the previous case, so it was simple. Just this itself is a free body diagram. Apply the formula, get the desired value. But in this case, we have variation in the cross section, variation in the load, variation in the length. So what we have to do for our free body diagram for a member, we have to find the internal forces acting in that member. So first let's see what else is given to us. So okay, this is the given data, and yes, the member is made of steel. So for steel, we know what is the Young's modulus. It is 200 gigapascals. So this is what we have. Now further, in order to find the displacement of the given bar, we need to find the internal forces separately for different bar portions, because displacement depends upon the load, material properties, that's Young's modulus, and dimension of the member. So this I had told you already. Now internal forces, how to take the internal forces? I will take this is a member PQ. This member is P and Q. So in this PQ, anywhere you can take a section, here or here, means maximum at this junction, that is. So now at this section you have to find out the net force acting. So that will give you the complete free body diagram of this member PQ with the final loading conditions. Similarly, when you go ahead, you can take a section in member QR followed by a section in member RS. So that is the best way to find out the net force acting in your member. So let's move ahead. Okay, again, which I was telling you free body diagrams. So this is our member. Let's take a first section. This is section. As I told you, this section doesn't mean there is no fixed position. So in between this PQ, anywhere you can take. So our basic tendency is to find the force acting in this member PQ. For this, I can take section here also. So it means we are what we are considering. We are considering the forces acting above this section on this member. So our focus is to find out the net force acting on the member with uniform cross section. So on this section, we'll see what force will be acting. I think it is quite clear from here. On PQ, we have 50 kilonewton force acting in the upward direction. It means at this section there will be internal resistance or internal resistive force differently, which will be equating this 50K. So that means we will get one more force at this section of magnitude 50 kN in the opposite direction. So that is how the equilibrium of this member will be maintained. It's very important. So this is the final free body diagram of member PQ. I think it is quite clear to you. Now coming to member QR. Now I am taking QR section. So one thing we have to remember, when you start taking sections, start from one end, as I have started from end P. Well, this is a single assembly. So this methodology, what we are adopting, it is to just find out the force acting in the member with the uniform cross section. Now I am concerned about member QR. I will take this member QR. So in this member QR, anywhere I will take a section. Let's say this is section member QR. Now above this section, whatever loading is with you, with that load, you have to find out the resistance being offered by it. It means in this case, what we have 50 kN. It is 50 kN is your positive 50 tensile load, and we have 10 and 10 20. It means 50 minus 20, it gives you 30 kN. So 30 kilonewton load will be acting here in this direction. So as I told you, again I will repeat, the loading above the section you have to consider. Start from one end and keep on proceeding till you reach to the farthest end. So this is the section, and remember QR. So this is the free body diagram. We are concerned, don't forget, we are concerned about member QR with a uniform cross section. So, but to find out the net load acting at this member, we have to consider all the loadings, because all the loadings are affecting this member also. Now next comes member RS. Now in member RS, we have to check for, again we will go for a section. Now this section will be taken anywhere between R and S. Now I think you can find out on your own what would be the load acting on this at the section. So it means above this section we have 50, then 10 10 20, and 20 20 40. It means 40 50 60 downwards, and the 50 upwards. So we have minus 10 kN. So this is the load. So if we have assumed positive sense for the positive sign for tension and negative sign for compression, so it means there will be a net compression in this member. So that's how we will take our 10K minus 10K. Means above this member RS, there is compression only. Here finally we are getting compression here. So that is why the resisting force will also be a compressive force. So that is how you have to find out the internal forces, so that you could frame a free body diagram of a uniform cross section member. So that is the section, and this is the final loading condition for member RS. Once again, I will repeat. Start from one end. In this case, we have to start from end P. Keep on taking sections in the desired member, and above that section, whatever the loading is corresponding to that load, find out your load acting at your section. Similarly, we have taken section at peak in PQ, then in QR, and then RS. So now finally we will draw the free body diagrams for member PQ, since we know the loading conditions. So this which is given, this is already is a free body diagram for member PQ. Now for QR we will have free body diagram. If I draw a free body diagram here, I am having a load 30 here, so it means 30 here. This is for member QR. This is load 30. Right. Similarly, if you take member RS, so we will having for RS we will have load of 10 and 10 on the opposite sides. So these are the final free body diagrams which I am showing you here for PQ, for QR, and for RS. So these are the final free body diagrams. Now, in order to find out the change in length, we have to apply formula individually on member PQ, then on member QR, and then on member RS. And corresponding to the length, whether it has decreased or increased, we will add the length or subtract the length. In this case, total del L becomes del L of PQ plus del L of QR, since they are the length are is increasing based on the tensile load. So, but minus of length of RS, because due to this compressive load, it will decrease. So again, the same formula. So these are the final results. This is for the first one is for PQ, and then for QR positive lengths, then for RS the negative length. So our final formula comes out to be 0.86 millimeter is the total change in length of the given assembly. So that is how we have to proceed. At times you may get it may happen you may get a bar of a uniform cross section, as I'm trying to show you here. So this is a bar with a uniform cross section, and at different junctions there might be different loading conditions. Some load acting here, some load acting like this way, like this. So in this case, cross section is uniform, area is uniform, no doubt, but there is a variation in the loading at the different points. So for that, again, you have to find a free body diagram. How you will do that? Say this is one member, this is one member. I'll just change the color. This will be a one member. Start from one end. Start from this end. Say end P. From P toward this, let this be one member. Find out the internal force at this point. Then second would be this member. Take a section at this point, and beyond this section, consider all the loads and find internal force at this point. And similarly proceed for all of them. The procedure is simple and is applicable for all the cases, whether you have variation in load or variation in cross section. So that is how we have to find the change in length of the given structures or given members. So this was all for this lecture. So in case you have any doubt, any query, you can drop a message in my chat box. Hope to see you soon. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks again.